Welcome to Without a Doubt, the podcast where we explore the transformative journey of breaking cycles and embracing our truest self. I'm Mad, a cycle breaker, freelancer, and a sprinkle of reality. Each week, we dive into conversations that challenge conventional thinking and inspire personal growth. Here, you'll find practical tips to help you navigate your own path towards authenticity. Whether you're looking to overcome limiting beliefs, create meaningful change in your own life, or simply live more authentically, you're in the right place. So get ready to break the cycles that are holding you back and start living a life that is truly reflecting who you are meant to be. I've been back on a W-2 and back to a real job for a minute now. I work about 30-ish hours a week, but I also have a lucrative eBay reselling business that spans across different selling platforms. I host this podcast, and I do understand why people think I'm always doing something. I'm very aware of the work ethic instilled in me, and I know this is why I am who I am. This is why I do what I do. And I think about this podcast even, this isn't even work. This is my passion project. But then again, I'm committed to one episode a week, putting out a topic that I really want to share. And this week was just probably one of the tougher episodes to get out because my personal life in the last week has just felt like a blur. I am week to week on this podcast and I have been busy. I am not complaining, but I'm at my mental capacity. For real, for real. At the end of each day, I'm just tapped. Like doing this podcast, I'm recording this solely on a Monday night, 2 days before I launch it, at 7:30 p.m. Like I am honestly ready for bed. I think a lot of us are living this way. We are toast by each end of day. I think we're all in overdrive. We're working harder than ever in our own personal lives. And most of us still have jobs to go to, work to get done, businesses to run, small businesses to run, and overall just life. Earlier this year in April, I did put out a podcast episode about the power of work ethic. I did talk about this already, but I was just back to work at that time and I was dealing with a handful of new coworkers. I'm back into the business that I used to work, and Kendra and I both went back to work here. We both went back into the catering business. We work for the same company, and it is very hands-on. The amount of moments I ask myself, what the fuck is wrong with some of these people who are coming to work and why they aren't even prepared, or why do they have the bare minimum, or why do they do the bare minimum, always has my wheels turning because I'm not that person. I also can't help but think that laziness and work ethic actually do run hand in hand. I do not feel that you can have both. I am not a sitter, but I mean, of course, can't we all be really good mushy couch potatoes? But there's something to be said about someone who is always asking to help, someone who just does, someone who takes initiative. That's something that's more so instilled within. And maybe that's why I really wanted to talk about work ethic or even taking initiative, which you'll hear me talk about more in this episode. So often I find that people will wait for someone else to do something for them before they even try. Most people in my line of current work in the service industry are typical hustlers. Why? Because cash money, baby. But tips is how we essentially make a living. Good service will generally get you better money. And that's why people who move with lack of efficiency, lack of initiative, or better yet, don't even have both, don't even have any solution-orientedness, usually get the end of the job totem pole. But also, they don't get the opportunities to make more money. So I ask myself, is working harder always worth it for the reward? And I do agree, yes, it is. Being lazy is just going to put you in positions where you're either not going to get hired back, or they're just not going to put you in the positions to make more money. I get it. You're like Madison. Everyone is not like you. Not everyone has the gas in the tank like you. Not everyone is a doer. And I get that. Not everyone has a strong work ethic. And I think that's why I'm like, how do we dive into this topic and talk about? And I really do believe that your upbringing and your environment from which you were grown into prove how you work as you get older. If you were raised in an environment that doesn't emphasize the importance of hard work or responsibility, you're most likely going to have an easier job, something that you don't have to work so hard to make money for. When I was growing up, I watched my mom, who was a single parent, work every day, basically 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then when she closed her business during COVID, she ended up going back into the service industry. She became a waitress again. My grandma, who is in her 80s, is still a waitress. And my other grandma, who retired at 72, worked until she literally was too tired to. When my dad was alive and in his better sorts, he always hustled. He always had cash money. He always had a job. I watched my parents, my family, and the world around me work very hard. I had people in my life who wanted to be business owners, who were business owners, and I used that as motivation. And I think if you have that as you're growing up, those are the kind of examples that you'll be able to move forward with to do better in work life. I was raised by hardworking women, and I am a hardworking woman. You do what you are trained to do. Generational cycles are moving down. But then people also have lack of motivation, lack of intrinsic motivation, or passion, just like lack of passion altogether for whatever work they're in. And that really leads to disengagement. Also, lower work standards, not interested, you don't like what you're doing, you're more likely to do a shittier job. Or just not even take the initiative, once again, that word, initiative, to finish your task. Motivation is usually your paycheck, but sometimes that doesn't even make a difference. And I notice that a lot in my work. There are people that get, somewhat about the same pay as me. I don't know what everyone gets paid in my industry or in my job per se, but I do know my boss says this all the time. I tip out differently. I see what you guys are doing, and I will tip out more if you are working harder. It is noticed. So don't think like, oh, my hard work goes unnoticed, because a lot of times it feels that way, but oftentimes it's actually noticed. Then we move into education skills. Some people are just ill-equipped, or they lack confidence in their abilities, which leads to reluctance to actually fully engage in their work. This makes me think of Kendra, my girlfriend. When she got into catering with me, she had never done this kind of business. She never did this industry. She never did hospitality. And these are the kind of things that I think about. I'm like, she didn't know. She had to learn. And sometimes that takes us a little bit longer to figure out this industry. So I think sometimes we have to give people a little more grace with their work ethic when they're moving into a new industry. But I also think people will work hard. Kendra just did what she needed at her job. And that's why our boss moved her up where she did and hooked her up with a pay raise, and notices what she does, because she takes initiative. But then I think also some people are going to be burnt out. Some people have been at these jobs for so long. They've had this prolonged stress or dissatisfaction for so long with work that it leads to burnout. It causes a huge decline in your work ethic. Have you ever just worked with someone who has been doing that job for so long? It makes me think of like the old teachers who are just like all the time. They're just jaded humans who hate their work life, and you find they're wallowing, overflowing into our own work grinds. Burnout can lead to a lot of negative emotions at work, a lot of complaining, a lot of bitching. And that's why when you're working, you have to have strong boundaries about your own time, not letting your boss take advantage of what time you have. Be okay with saying no if you need a break. Be okay with saying no if you need to get out. I get it. Be okay with changing jobs if you're dissatisfied or you're burnt out at work. We shouldn't be living that way. Then there are cultural factors. Like, everyone has cultural factors like that take place in every kind of thing. But work ethic, different cultures are going to work harder, period. You have different influences like behaviors and attitudes towards work. Some cultures just are known to be workers. Some people also have no choice. Some people just simply work harder because they have to. They're on a journey for a better life. There are tons of people who don't even work at all. They live off the government. They bitch that they don't have enough. And then there are people who will move here from Cuba. They'll move here from Cuba, come to America. They'll clean and mop floors when they have far more capabilities because their life is better here. Cultural differences make a difference. That is why we see so many people cleaning and doing those kind of lack jobs that the middle class American doesn't want to do. Immigrants do the jobs Americans don't want to do. Cultural factors play a part. They get lower totem pole jobs because of language. They also get lower totem pole jobs because they are not citizens here. And that is wild, because a lot of these immigrants coming here have far more capabilities than some of the other people, even at the job that I work at. Cultural is a huge thing, but you will see different shifts of work ethic in each different culture. Some cultures work harder, some cultures don't. I think Americans are probably the laziest work culture out there. But hey, who am I? I'm an American, and I work fucking super hard because the American dream is bullshit. We're far lazier than the immigrants that come to America, but a lot of immigrants are moving here because they want a better life. It's the American dream, right? It was made for those coming to live here, not those already born here. Sad to say, but that's really the truth. Your work environment, it's like if it's toxic or unsupportive, like it will demotivate you as an employee, and it'll lead you to doing shittier work. Bad bosses leave you wanting to do less. Better bosses will ultimately keep you around longer and keep you happier at work. I, for so long, was working in a toxic space when I was in the fitness industry. Not just about body image and how I felt towards myself, but just about the constant ideas about what we had to wear or the things that we had to say. And they were so general and broad that I just didn't feel like I was even saying things that were true to my industry anymore. I don't think a lot of people realize how much the toxic workspace actually dilutes your ability to do your job. If you're working with people who do the bare minimum, you may realize that, and then you start to say, I'm also going to do the bare minimum. The people who are gossiping at work, we tend to fall into that too. We all start gossiping at work. We start to say, well, you know what? Sarah gets away with that, so why can't I get away with that? And then you start to become like a B- employee and then a C-, and then you realize you are one of those lazy employees at some point. I can't say that's actually happened to me, but sometimes I'm like, why would I do that when they don't even do that? And that's their job. I will tell you once again, harder work will get you rewarded more, better opportunities, and hopefully a fatter paycheck. That is so true. It is true in my case, and that has happened plenty of times for me where I have been moved into positions because I just keep doing a better job, even if everyone else is doing the bare minimum. And then I think also we have these personal circumstances and generational differences. Hello, external factors, personal issues, life challenges. That affects our ability to maintain strong work ethic. I think it's hard to leave your shit at the door sometimes when you go to work. So many people come in and just rolls on in. It's like a huge tidal wave that rushes through the door. But those people who drag that in with them, they surf in the door with their drama, they're the ones that are distracted. They're the ones that are not going to be as capable of fulfilling their own work tasks. And of course, some generations have different ideas of what work looks like. When you think of the boomers versus millennials versus Gen Z, that doesn't always ring true. Their work ethic is not the same. I do work with some older people who literally do nothing and sit on their ass, and their work ethic is shit. But I do think that this is just personal. I think that the Gen Z isn't as into dirty work and service industry with their hands as the older generations are, because new age has technology. We have computer work, more technology, more innovation. And I'm not saying that this is a definite list of why people are shitty and have crap work ethic, but I do think this is an idea, and maybe we can give people a little grace as why not everyone is going to have the same work ethic as you or me. But what actually does make you a good worker? How do you know if you actually have good work ethic? What does that encompass? Let's do it. We're talking about reliability. You know, you can be dependent, you can be consistent in your attendance, your performance, your meeting deadlines. Getting things done correctly and on time is actually where you need to do things. Reliability will bite you in the ass, and this is where you need to hold tight to your boundaries. Sometimes, because you are so reliable, your job will take advantage. That does not mean they can always ask you to go to work. Just because you have good work ethic, just because you want to make your money, doesn't mean you have to jump on the fly to get to your job. Also, that responsibility, it's like taking ownership of your tasks and actions and being accountable for your outcomes. Being solution-oriented and treating your work like it is your own business and doing a good job is a reflection of you, not your job responsibility. It's your integrity. Then it moves into diligence, showing dedication and effort to completing your tasks, often going above and beyond what is actually required. Taking initiative is not always, but it's not always about doing this. I was recently saying that sometimes the people who do the most usually get punished because, you know, you can do it. So they ask you. They won't ask Nemo down the hall because time and time again, Nemo has slacked off and she washes dishes so shitty and is known to do less than average work. But sometimes being the diligent person means doing the things you don't want to, being the dishwasher because you actually wash the dishes correctly because you are capable. Sucks, but I know you're thinking like, oh, I know you're probably thinking of a time maybe this happened to you. They gave you a job that you didn't want because Betty just doesn't do it as well. So she gets to do the light lifting and it seems like punishment for doing a good job. I get it. But it's not. Once again, like I said earlier, your boss does notice, your boss does see, and I guarantee you, you do make a fatter paycheck. Your integrity, like I mentioned before, is so important. It's your moral and ethical principles, being honest and doing the right thing even when no one is watching. Period. Doing the right thing and going above and beyond because that is who you are. This is one of my biggest bubbles in workforce and work ethic, because I do think that I start to think less of people who just don't do a great job. If you are a bare minimum worker, if you steal, if you lie, and if you manipulate any of your coworkers or bosses, I do think less of you. I can't help that. I think because I go into work doing a great job, not the bare minimum. That falls into my work integrity. I hate to say this, but if you can't do a decent job where you work, I think of you as a lazy human being, and that's not who I want to associate myself with at work. So I'm probably not going to talk to you. Your discipline and maintaining focus and self-control to prioritize your tasks and manage time effectively, just do the damn work. Discipline is so important. Being independent and knowing what you need to do to get it done makes you look like a stronger teammate and colleague. Asking if somebody needs help, helping someone get out of the weeds, is how you become a better teammate. Teamwork is the next thing I want to talk about, because collaborating well with others and being supportive and valuing diverse perspectives, I get it. Not all of us work well in groups. I do best with really only one or two people. I work, honestly, probably best alone. The more hands on deck, the more I find people will rely on other people, and one person usually does the brunt of the work. If you're hired to work, learning how to pull your own weight makes you a better team worker. Side note, learn some patience. Hello, Madison. Reminder to you, some people are just slower to get things done. And I was talking about taking initiative, being open to change, willing to learn new skills, methods to improve things, being solution focused, and knowing how to improve your own performance, or trying to improve your performance, but also doing the job without being asked, is truly what I start thinking when I say initiative. That is strong work ethic. Those who take initiative get promoted more often. Those who take initiative are usually in leadership positions. I also think, having a positive attitude when you approach these challenges at work is really important. The optimism, your resilience, it'll motivate yourself. And not just that, but others. If you're negative Nancy all the time, no one is going to want to work with you. And I think of this one guy who bartends and serves with me. I love working with him because he's always in a good mood. I know when I get to work and I'm working with him, I'm going to have I'm walking around like the little birds from Snow White. I'm leaving little happy trails of dust, and that makes a fucking difference. Smile, be positive, and make that money. And finally, going into professionalism with your work ethic is really important. Conducting yourself in a manner that reflects respect for your workplace and your colleagues. I'm not the most professional human, that's for sure, but I do know when to act accordingly. I work for a luxury boutique caterer that pays thousands and thousands of dollars just for food. My face usually reads what I am thinking. That is professionalism. Your job, what you say, how you say it, what your face says, all adds into professionalism. And then again, we're human. Your personality is still fun to see. Shine it. Let it fly. Even in our professional settings, we are not robots. I know I hit a ton of these on my last episode, and I really do believe that work ethic actually starts with how we want to show face to the world. It's a correlation of who we really are. What's ingrained in us as children shifts into our adult life. For some of us, we watch our parents work tirelessly to support us, and we want more for our own lives. It's not necessarily that we want to work more or necessarily work less. We technically just want to live more. Living more ultimately means laying down the work needed to get your own grass to grow. It means watering your grass, giving it a little extra fertilizer, and focusing on your own green grass. Why is it green? Because you're focusing on it. Your work ethic is there. Your work ethic pours into what grows. You want flowers? You have to plant the seeds. You want a garden? You have to lay down the soil. You have to work it. Your work ethic matters for your own personal growth, not just for who you work for. That's just a reminder. Happy Wednesday. Don't you forget that you are without a doubt a badass. Don't you work too hard, but also don't be a lazy ass. XOXO, your girl Mad. Hey, and by the way, if you love this podcast, let me remind you that you sharing this is one of the greatest ways to help my podcast just grow. If you don't already follow this, hit the follow button. Give it a rating. Do something with this that can help this go from where I am now to somewhere greater. You have the ability to help me be a bigger podcaster. I love you for being here, and you can always find me on YouTube, Instagram, or anywhere you listen to your podcasts. See you around and catch you next time. Bye.